yeah, welcome back. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Game Changer Network, KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Spencer Cross. Just want to say very special thanks to Micah Hanks. Micah, you are one funny gentleman. And I got to tell you, he won't be talking for about 2 days after that. I'm sure he blew his pipes out. Thank you, Micah. Very, very, very funny stuff. Happy April Fool's Day, everybody. Now it's time to get serious. Let's put our serious hats on. I'm very fired up. Spencer Cross got his Bachelor of Science from Wesley College in business and is the author of The Great Pyramid, a factory for Monatomic Gold, as well as a contributor to Approaching Singularity, The Genesis of Creation by S. Jason Cunningham. Cross was a real estate investor up until July 2012 when he was thrust into the field of alternative history after receiving information in his dream state that was crucial to the understanding of the soul's journey through time and space. Cross has combined evidence from several popular modern theories to demonstrate this amazing series of reactions. In the book, he presents circumstantial evidence for why this substance was being manufactured and how and why it is beneficial to all of us. I would like to welcome to Fade to Black for the first time, Spencer Cross. Spencer, are you with us, sir?
I am. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here today, and I hope we can have an enlightening discussion on April Fools on this joking day. I'm going to try to make it a little bit more serious than everyone's been playing around with today.
Yeah, and, this show, Spencer, now obviously we're going to jump into some very serious subjects that I discuss nearly nightly on the show, but, this show, I try to be light and even-handed every night, but we go into some pretty serious subjects night after night after night after night, and the news, I present the news every night. And it's just getting darker and more depressing. And I was excited. I'm like, April Fool, you know what? For once, I can actually read the news and not get upset tonight, And I will assure everybody from this point out, April Fools, that hat is off. We've got our serious big boy pants on now. So I am ready. I'm fired up.
Well, you can be serious every other night, and we don't have to be too serious tonight. We can be thankful because we have a night of solutions. We hear all of these dark stories about, the cabal and Illuminati and this small group of people who are ruling the earth. But, tonight we can actually talk about a solution, something that's empowering to us. That's something that I'm pretty excited to talk about tonight.
Well, I want to, before we get into this, want to tell the audience you can go to jimmychurchradio.com. I'm going to do this in real time so I navigate this correctly. You have provided us with a bunch of illustrations. So if you go and you click on the link that says more info underneath Spencer's name, that's going to take you to a page of illustrations and underneath his biography. So we've got a series of illustrations here for our manufacturing illustrations. We'll get to all of these. And then below that, you'll see a bunch of, it looks like a chemistry set. And there you go. So now, to do this correctly, click on each picture twice. When you click on, I want everybody, while you're there, click on, watch our website blow up here. Click on and then when you get to the illustration, click on it a second time, and that'll take you to full screen. Okay, so I'm looking at step 1 here, and it's nice and clear, and you can read it and everything. It's beautiful, beautiful illustrations. So that's how you do it. We're going to be talking about this tonight, and, just go backwards on your browser, boom, twice, and it'll take you right back to the set of illustrations and photographs, and then we will actually get through those. So now, that's set up. I'm sure I'll have to explain this one more time tonight, or our producers can actually do that in Twitter. Okay. Now, that being said, your childhood. Let's discuss that for a second. Your family, discussions of Egypt or history, or, what was that like growing up, and was there a fascination with this subject?
Well, We traveled a lot when I was growing up. Actually, when I was 10 years old, we moved to Japan. My dad worked for a chemical company, and we were transferred overseas to Japan so that he could run an operation over there. And so there were a couple of different things going on there. I had exposure to high-level business as a young child. I had exposure to culture shock, moving to Japan as a 10-year-old in downtown Tokyo, literally in downtown Tokyo between Shibuya and Omotesando. And I grew up in that environment, in that high fast-paced environment. And the first trip that we took, we were allowed to go around the world, and I was allowed to pick a stop along the way. And this was in 6th or 7th grade. And my teacher, Mr. Gibson, he was teaching social studies, and one of the subjects that he brought up was the Great Pyramid. And we discussed it to no end, of course, in that class, because we're talking about the birth of civilization. And we started with the Sumerians, and then we moved on to ancient Egypt, because at that time, this is in 1992 area. And at that time, when I'm a child, I'm sitting here thinking I'm being taught the truth. And Mr. Gibson said something interesting to me, to the class, mind you, that really stuck with me. And it actually sparked a spontaneous discussion in the class amongst the students. And this is before it was even cool to be talking about UFOs or aliens or anything like that, at least overseas when you're among the people that I'm among. And he said, he looked at the class very seriously when we got to the pyramid, and he said, who in here really does believe that human beings, that slaves were able to slide these up and down ramps with logs, and were able to do this in the one lifetime of a pharaoh? And no one raised their hand. We all kind of just looked at each other like, that is a truth statement if I've ever heard one. It's a question. The professor in front of sixth graders and 7th graders was actually challenging us to think. And it was the first time that I was actually challenged to think as a child growing up. I've been force-fed information. You're in grammar school. And then finally, when I get to 6th and 7th grade, I'm allowed to think. And the first one that's allowing me to do that is my social studies teacher. And so when he told us the story of how the textbooks were saying that the pyramids were built, and then he asked us, there was a paradox created immediately between me, the student, and the teacher. And I don't even know if he really realized that he did that when he asked that question, but it definitely stuck with me. So when my parents asked me, where did I want to stop on our, round the world trip, the first thing I said was, I want to go to Egypt. This is something I must see, because this is going against everything that I've already been taught. Everything that I've been taught as a child. I'm still a child, yes, but I've been taught some very fundamental mistruths, and I wanted to see if I could discover some of it myself.
Well, Mr. Gibson deserves a medal. He's one of the first teachers that I've ever heard that is stepping outside of the box like that and influencing a class. And, you were probably not the only class that he said those statements in. And that's fantastic. And look at you now. So
I'm honored.
Yeah, exactly. So you chose to go to Egypt.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a funny story when you're 11, 12 years old, going to Egypt, and we didn't exactly pick the best time of year to go either. Everyone says when you go to Disney World, you can pretty much go any time of year because the weather's wonderful, except for in late August, it's super hot in Orlando. Well, no one really talks about what the best time. In 1992, no one discussed what's the best time of year to go to Egypt. Well, no one really goes there, so that wasn't discussed. So we went in the middle of summertime, and it was about the hottest place on earth that I had ever been. And the first thing I'm sitting here thinking is, okay, this was kind of a big mistake. I hope it can even handle going into some of these temples and monuments with this serious heat. I mean, it was over 115 degrees most every stop that we went to, and we took a trip up and down the Nile on a cruise ship, or I shouldn't say cruise ship, is more like a riverboat, rather large riverboat, and we get to Luxor was one of the stops that I'll just kind of hit on this one, and it was so hot that I chose not even to get off the boat. And they had a small swimming pool that was about the size of a hot tub, and I jump in this thing, and it went from literally 140 degrees. The air was 140 degrees, and I jump into the pool, and it's like 60, and I freeze, and I jump out, and then the air is so dry there, it's like 5 to 11% humidity, and all the water just wicked right off of me instantly. It felt like I had jumped in a pool of gasoline. It was amazing. But those experiences kind of stuck out in my head as a kid more than really memorizing any of the hieroglyphics or anything like that, or the reliefs that were on the temple wall. But the beautiful thing about it now is I can actually tap into those old memories using Google and some images and some of these books like that Lawrence Gardner has written. It's some beautiful memories are able to resurface that I thought I had lost forever, but now they're coming back to me. But it was a fun trip, and it was a neat trip.
Let's take a quick break right there. It's a good spot to take a break. This is Fade to Black tonight. Spencer Cross, Monatomic Gold. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be back right after this quick break.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Alternative Talk, KGRA.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. May arrives soon, and with it comes another Contact in the Desert. So join me in Joshua Tree, California for the 3rd annual Contact in the Desert Conference being held May 29th through the 31st. 2015 brings another awesome lineup of speakers, including publisher of Legendary Times, Giorgio Tsoukalos, New York Times bestselling author David Wilcock, journalist and conspiracy expert Jim Mars, former head of UFO Project for the MOD Nick Hope, investigative reporter Linda Moulton Howe, author and contactee Travis Walton, UFO historian Richard Dolan, and many more. You don't want to miss this. Fade to Black and KGRA will be there broadcasting live May 29th. Just visit contactinthedesert.com for tickets and information. That's contactinthedesert.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air, to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With the mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
right, welcome back, Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network, KGRA The Planet. Follow us on Twitter, at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Come and hang out. Shoot me an email right now to Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. And if you have any questions for myself or Spencer, just hashtag F2BQ in, I almost said tweet box, tweet deck, and that shoots straight to me right here in the studio. All right, so Spencer, so now you go and you go to, I haven't been to Giza, and I can't wait. It is a bucket list, and we'll be doing it probably later on this year for the first time. I'm totally excited. But how, when you first get there and you're looking at this, especially at that age, it influences you for the rest of your life. But what were you thinking? You know, what was the first thought that popped into your mind?
Wow. I mean, it was just, the whole experience was wow. After we got to Cairo and you could actually see some of these monuments from where we were, it was like a very densely populated city that backed up against a giant sandbox. And you could see these huge triangles off in the distance, and it just felt like another planet.
Right.
It just had that feel like it was not part of the Earth. It really did not. Because as you're scanning Cairo, you know, supposedly in 1992, you know, we are near the peak of our current civilization. But yet you see this haunting shadow off in the distance that just says, no. You think it is, but it's not. Right. It's just whispering in your ear saying, no, you guys...
Yeah, you don't know nothing. Yeah.
You don't know anything. And that's exactly what I thought when I was there. And another thing that I remember with the sunsets were red. You know, when you go to a sunset in California, it's nice and orange. Or when I was in Hawaii, it was yellow and orange, and you get to see the green flash every now and then. But it was just blood red every night that it set in Egypt and Cairo. But, when I saw those triangles off in the distance, I was like, oh, here we go. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah, we're idiots. Yeah. Exactly. Well, you had your epiphany revelation a few years ago. Let's fast forward to that because we're going to go back and visit Giza as a child here again. So what was the revelation that happened 3 years ago?
Okay, that's the big question. That's the money question. And that's actually the question that I haven't fully answered until this date. So we're starting a little early on that, but let's delve into it. This is a big deal. And I want to thank you for asking that question because this is going to raise a whole nother subject that's going to probably send you down another rabbit hole. But in 2012... I had a vision in a state of sleep that would be in between complete sleep and a waking state called theta. And the way your brain works is you have beta, which is your waking state. Like you and I, as we talk to each other, we're operating in beta wave state, which is really the fastest state of vibration that your brain works at. Then the next one down is alpha, and that's kind of the state that you get into when you're driving. You know, when you're driving down the interstate and you going down the same path that you've been, you know, every single day, and you're commuting to and from work, you go into the alpha state, and it's slightly slower, a little bit more rhythmic, less agitated. You're not as skittish unless someone cuts you off. Then you get slammed right back in beta and get mad.
Right.
And then the next one down is theta. And theta is kind of like this unusual place that you settle into for just a few minutes before you drift off into delta, which is your deep sleep. And you dream somewhere in between theta and delta. But you have this state it's kind of like a hypnotic state where you begin to have access to some of the consciousness that surrounds you. I don't know if you've had guests on in the past where they talk about the aura and the energy field that's around the human body. for healthy human bodies. We won't talk about psychopaths and that kind of thing
right
now. But it's the consciousness that surrounds your body that holds a lot more information, believe it or not, than in your brain. And I was waking up one morning, and I was in theta for a little bit longer than I normally was. And I realized that I was having a memory of me being a completely different being. I looked down at my body, and I was kind of like a glowing blue, and I was about 7 feet tall, and my skin was slightly translucent. And I was touching my body, and it felt kind of like a hard silicon feel to it. And I could see kind of like if you go deep sea diving down into the midnight zone and you find all of these phosphorescent animals that are living off of bacteria and they're producing their own light. That's what was happening inside my body. And you could actually see through. My body was also translucent while I'm watching these this light movement going on inside of my body. And then when I look up, I notice that I'm standing in front of a table, and the table has a 3-dimensional hologram in the center of it. And in this hologram was this solar system. I'm looking at a hologram of this solar system, and there are other beings that are very similar to me that are surrounding this table. And what we are doing is we are analyzing what's going on in the solar system because we were given a cry for help. And what we're doing is we decide as we are sitting while we're watching this hologram, I have this realization that we are sitting significantly distant outside of the solar system. And we decide to send a probe into the solar system to try to find if we can find some clues to find out what the problem is. So we send a probe in that is disguised as a comet. And this comet was actually Elenine, come to find out. So Elenine is coming into the solar system, and what we did was we charged it with some light properties that were significantly different than just normal light. It was kind of like a gravitic light pattern that we charged it with, and it was sending pulses into each planet and other planetary body to try to get a seismic reading on what was inside of the planet, trying to find caverns, hiding places, and that sort of thing. And what we noticed is that the probe was discovered right around the time that it hit Saturn or near Saturn. And we also discovered that there was a problem coming from Saturn at the same time. So you like where this is going?
Yeah, keep going. Yeah, I'm with you. So real quick, when you were looking down at your body in this state, could you see your organs and your bones? Was it that kind of translucent?
Yeah, everything. I could see everything. My muscles and my skin were all translucent, but it was also emanating a slight blue glow at the same time.
I had a guest on the show last year, pretty famous researcher, that described nearly the same situation. So I just want you to continue. Really? This is, wow. It's almost eerie. It's almost deja vu-ish, and I'm feeling kind of weird right now. I need to turn out the lights in the studio and get this place real dark. And it's already dark. Okay, so let's keep moving. So Elenise crashes into Saturn. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, the comet Elenine is...
Or Elenine.
Right. It's going past Saturn. Or I wouldn't say that it was necessarily right next to it, but as we were coming into the solar system, that's what we scanned a problem there first. And the probe was also simultaneously discovered. But the funny thing is that we knew it was safe because it was also discovered here on Earth at the same time. So that's kind of an ironic thing about it, is that if there was an extraterrestrial presence that wanted to get rid of this probe as it went by Saturn, then it would be noticed if it was shot down. It would be pretty obvious. So it would be, if the goal is secrecy, which is kind of what we have learned that this group likes is secrecy, then shooting down this comet that was already discovered could draw a little bit more attention to it than they would want anyway. So anyway, the comet just continues through, and what we discover next, there's a few other small issues that we discover, but we did discover the main problem. And the main problem was that, yes, Earth is significantly shackled at the moment when this is all going on and when I'm being shown this. And it did. I mean, we did feel. I remember, even in this plane, I do remember having a significant amount of earthquakes as this came through. It kind of lined up with one planetary body and the sun, and then we would have a significant earthquake here. And one of them actually ended up being the Fukushima earthquake was one of them. So that was an unfortunate side effect. But what we discovered was that the moon is a significant problem. The moon is, and I know some people are going to argue with me, a lot of New Agers, they revere the moon very highly. But a lot of myths do state, tens of thousands of years ago, a time before the moon. So we have to keep that in mind, too, as we go about this. Scientists are saying that life couldn't exist without the moon and that sort of thing. But I'm just going to say that we discovered that there is a problem with the moon. And what the moon is doing is it's sending out a dark karmic trap that is coupling with the magnetosphere. And it is almost to the point where it is interwoven into the magnetosphere to where it's difficult for just about any technology to try to extract it from the magnetosphere. But what it's doing is it's transmitting kind of like, you ever heard of something called, the way I was shown it and symbolically would be aerogel. You ever heard of aerogel?
Yes. What is it?
Okay, so aerogel is one example that we've used recently was when we were trying to collect dust samples from a comet recently here on Earth. When we were trying to intercept some dust particles, we would use this gel type material, and we would pass through the tail of the comet to try to collect dust particles and capture them inside of this gel. Well, this aerogel is practically perfectly see-through like glass, but with a little smoky tint to it. And it's also absorbent, kind of like your the soles of your shoes. When you take a step, it catches your step and keeps you bouncing and keeps you going. And that's kind of what it looked like. It was like a translucent, smoky gel is what I was shown that's going on right now. And it's an electrified magnetic atmosphere that we're living in that really slows our souls down, so to speak. And it makes it to where we have trouble remembering, past lives. We have trouble remembering even our life purpose here on Earth. And we have trouble snapping out of fear state altogether.
Right.
It's very easy for us to be skittish and startled, and we stay in a fear state very easily. And so what we decided was, and when going back to this ET scenario, is that disabling the moon became the highest priority. But we also discovered another problem, and it is another problem that kind of couples as a safeguard or a safe, what do they call it, a fail safe to the magnet coupled fear cloak, so to speak. And what this is we discovered right after we discovered this fear cloak, then we had a council meeting, and in the council meeting we were trying to brainstorm to come up with solutions for this. And what we found out was that money, the black magic or the Babylonian money magic version of currency, not gold or commodity-backed type stuff, but fiat currency that is built on debt and accumulation of debt is the fail-safe to this. So, in one aspect, they are from the moon. They were literally transmitting a cloak of fear to trap the human soul in a karmic cycle where they would not remember, that they even have a soul is one of the first hurdles that we have trouble with. And then we run into trouble with if we can even remember that we do have a soul. Then the next issue is well, how many different lives have I lived here? Those are vicious cycles that we get stuck in. And so that was a trap that was set. But if what we discovered was, even if we removed that, if we were able to remove that fear trap from the magnetosphere, then we noticed after every simulation that we ran, we noticed that the humans still maintained the same perpetual habits, and it was because of the habitual attitude that they had towards money.
How long did this vision last?
Probably 4 or 5 minutes. It was really fast.
What it sounds like it was a download of a bunch of information.
Yes, mean it would border on the side of I have kind of come to terms with the fact that 10% of my consciousness is on that ship at any given moment.
What do you mean?
I mean exactly that. That I am simultaneously living two different lives at exactly the same time.
At this moment?
Yes.
Who did they disclose who they were?
No, they did not. And the way I would describe it this way, and mind you, I have not shared this with anyone. This is the first time that I'm sharing this at all. But it's the type of information that it's required to share with enough people at the right time, so that that everyone involved is safe. I have to make sure that I'm safe. I would like to make sure that you and your listeners are safe. But we also need to try to break out of this mess at the same time. So it's a really good time to discuss this. But basically, yes, it's two separate but the same entity at the same time. But what's happening is that the timeline is significantly different up, let's say, in the cosmos area. Above the Earth, it's significantly different. That's one thing that I was quickly able to establish, is that basically in our time, it would take probably 100 years to live about 20 seconds of whatever activity that they are performing up there. So what I was shown was a very quick, probably it might have been 20 to 30 minutes of their time. And yet it's something, if I'm going to completely unpack this and try to get to know the person up on that ship, it would probably take me years, decades to say, okay, let's go look in the mirror. I want to see my face. It's like a logarithmic scale of time.
Sure. Well, okay. I see about 10 different directions we need to go in. So I'm going to try to keep this focused, but yet get all of the questions out. First question is, are you suggesting that they were saying that we need to remove the moon? If the moon wasn't there, we would have clarity? Am I understanding you correctly?
If they completely removed it instantaneously, then we would go through a type of culture shock. It would be a little bit too much for us to handle. So what I understand is happening is that they are slowly turning down. In in Empire Strikes Back, when they send Obi-Wan Kenobi no, it's not Empire Strikes Back. It'll be Episode 4, A New Hope. When Obi-Wan Kenobi goes into the center of the Death Star and he starts turning the the knobs down, and you start hearing "ew," and then they start slowly charging down.
Right.
That's what I'm being shown is happening, and has been happening actually for a little while now.
So turning down the amplification, the strength.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay. Now, what about? I don't want to get too far into the fantastical, but I'm a guy, and I want to know a few things. Were you able to? Did you see the ship, and can you describe it?
No, I didn't see the outside of the ship, but I was able to see the inside, and it was I was in a contained area. Basically, it was in one room. It was the room where the holograph information material was kept and projected, and then the other room was a private boardroom, so to speak, a council room. Now, and that's where they gave out the missions of. Well, that would be the next topic if you wanted to go to that topic.
Well, yeah, like I said, there's 10 directions to go in, and I want everybody to know that Spencer's background was in banking. Finance, real estate. You lived a very a business life, a life of business, and this all just happened all at once, and you immediately left that life behind, didn't you?
Completely. It was almost like I had absolutely no choice in the matter at all. It just all happened instantaneously. I was working through some sales at the time. We were trying to get rid of some real estate. I had several residential units and some commercial property, and I was literally running some of my small investments, like a car wash. I was running a detail shop actively at the time as well. So I was actively involved in the community. If there are any of the local real estate agents listening to this show, which I'd imagine they are not, but if they were, they would be completely surprised to hear this, to say the least.
Yeah, so you literally had a garage sale, didn't you?
Absolutely. Literally did.
And the reasons for doing that, now there's certain times in life where we all have an epiphany and we make a left or right turn, but you took a hard left, man. You went right off the freeway and freed yourself. Why did you have to do that?
Because I was shown without a doubt in entirety what my purpose was. There was no question to it. There was no pondering. It was a complete epiphany as to why I was here, and I just had to get started immediately. And if I didn't get started immediately, then just had that feeling of all is lost.
So after that 4 minutes, were you able to sit up in bed? Is that what happened next? Did you sit up? And then what did you do?
Well, it was preceded by an electric shock in the center of my head. Basically, I was awoken with this electric shock, and I ran around the house. Mind you, I have 3 little kids, so this is the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, we're having a thunderstorm, and I need to see if we have to get everybody into the basement if there's a tornado. So I'm looking out all the window, and I see stars. See nothing but stars. So the first thing was okay, where is this shock? Where is this bright flash coming from? And then that's when the download started. And then it ended the same way with the same flash.
Then what did you do? I only ask because now you're asking yourself all the obvious questions. Okay, I'm sane. Am I going nuts? No, number one. Number two, if you get past that, then you have to do something with this information. Did you write it down? Did you sit down? Did you collect your thoughts? Or did you go back to bed?
Well, I all of the above.
Right.
I put my head in my hands, and I just sat there thinking, okay, I know I'm not going crazy, because that's the most clear thought that I've ever had in my life. the entire sequence of events felt more real than you and I talking right now over Skype.
Right.
So I knew that it was real. So then I had to unpack. Once I realized, okay, well, this is real, and I unpacked that part, then I had to unpack, what do I do next? What do I do about it? And so I just got online trying to figure out, okay, well, what do you do if you have a vision, and I just found all of these meditation techniques, and I just kind of succumbed to the idea. I guess I need to meditate. And so I started to meditate, and I wrote my entire experience down, and I had a lot less, I found fewer answers through meditation than I did through that just one event. However, when I would meditate and then ask, what am I supposed to do? I just kept being told over and over again that there's nothing to do. It'll all just happen and come on its own. And you will know what to do when it occurs. And that's literally what has happened so far.
Did they tell you that they were also in contact with other people, or were you the only one?
Let's say that it's kind of like a special forces group, and I'm not saying that I'm special or anything like that. There's many of us that are having this very similar type of experience, and I'm in contact with at least one of them. I found one of them now, and I believe that there are at least 7 more.
And the one that you're in contact with, we can move on from this, but the one that you're in contact with, exact same download, were you able to make sure that all the details were the same without disclosing what you already knew, that, and therefore you walked away knowing that indeed they have this very same exact experience?
Very, very similar. Very similar.
Interesting. Okay, so then what happens? What happens next? Are you cataloging and writing things down, because it all came to you at once? You had the flash, but it's an immense amount of information. So are you decoding it, I guess is the best way to put it?
That's a really good way to put it. Yes, it was decoded. It was downloaded to me, and now my job is to unpack these files and write it down. And that's what I've been in the process of doing. And I will continue periodically. I'll get another burst of downloads, and then that's what leads us to this book. The Pyramid Factory. It was yet another very detailed download.
We're not going to take a break. I'm going to pass up the break. We're going to keep this going, and we'll worry about the break later. Screw the network, man. Okay, so wow. Okay, so let's. Okay, you know what? I have one question that I just need to get out there for the last time. Is it Monatomic Gold, or is it Monatomic Gold? I've seen it referenced both ways, and trying to get details about when you research that subject, the information is scarce, and the real information is even scarcer. So, what is it? Monoatomic, or is it monatomic?
Well, that's where semantics come into play now, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Because what I ran into when I dove into this, literally, is that there have been people studying this for hundreds of years, and I did not even know it, at the time at least. And they have kind of kept to themselves, and they've recently, under the tutelage of Barry Carter, the man's name is Barry Carter, he is upkeeping a blog, so to speak, and an email log of people having experiences with something called Ormus. And Ormus is different from what I'm talking about here. But what they quickly corrected me on was that it's not monoatomic or monoatomic. They like to call it white powder gold.
Right.
So If you're kind of in the field and you're kind of a geek into this, then you're going to be very adamant to call it white powder gold. But you and I would know it as monoatomic or monatomic. It's interchangeable, actually. I have gotten email from a bunch of different listeners over the last couple of years that use it. And I was always a little reticent to respond. I don't have any experience. I've never seen it. And again, I've researched it as much as I can. Again, there's not a lot of real solid information out there. But can you buy it? Is it available? When I get emails from people that say that they use it and they've been using it for different reasons, and we'll get into all of that. But where are they getting it from? That's where the bad news is. I'm sorry to say that when it comes to buying this over the internet, it's really not a good idea. And I say that cautiously because I don't want to upset the people that are in my field, because I know that they work really hard to make it, and they're really busting their rear, and I applaud them for that. And I'm sure some of them are making it, and I think that they are. But the issue is it's dangerous to trust someone sending you
a white powder
in the mail. I mean, honestly. I mean, let's be serious here.
Yes.
It's a white powder coming in the mail.
Yes.
What do you expect?
Right.
And not only that, but if you research David Hudson's work, who's basically the modern father of this research, you'll find that it is, once you reach that state where it is the white powder gold or the monoatomic gold, it is very difficult to even, using technology that we have today, to identify what is in it.
Well, okay? This is my research, and this is my tiny brain. Okay, you're much smarter than I am. Let's put that out there first.
Oh no,
but we're talking about just the very definition of monoatomic or it means one atom. And it is gold that is broken down into one atom. That's because it's not, and again, this is way beyond my brain, but that's why it's in a powder state and not in its gold state. Am I correct? And if not, just help us out and define what it actually is.
Well, you're getting really close. But what I found is that it's not literally monoatomic gold, which is why the people in the field like to stray away from that term monoatomic. It's probably closer to diatomic, meaning the smallest you can get is maybe 2 atoms. But the unique properties of gold, when you look at the periodic table, it is one of a group of noble metals. It's very highly non-responsive. It's unreactive to many, many different stimuli or catalysts. So
the noble metals being platinum, silver, gold, nickel, copper, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, all those take a very, if you're going to leave them alone to the elements, it's going to take a long time for them to corrode and decompose.
Right.
And gold is the last one on the list that will. And that's why it's part of that group. And what is unique about gold is that a lot of the other catalysts that will decompose the other noble metals are still non-responsive to gold. But what you do is the goal is to first dissolve the gold into a gold chloride solution, and then you're going to flip it back and forth over the neutral level of 7 pH into the 10 pH range. And you just go back and forth, and every time you flip it, you're beating it up like it's in a boxing match, and you're removing the bonds that hold the atoms together in their crystalline form. So slowly but surely, you're beating at the crystal of the molecule, and you're getting it from 1,000 atoms down to 100, and then finally down to like 10. And there's really no way of knowing exactly what level you're breaking it down to, but in my experience is that what happens when you finally get it to that state that you're looking for is that it leaves behind all of its metallic properties. That's the goal. You're basically turning it into something that's similar to a ceramic.
Now, it's also found in this state in nature, too. Am I correct?
It is. It is. The desert area is a really good place where you can find it naturally. But again, you can't really test it to see if it's actually the gold version of the monoatomic state, or if it might be silver or iridium or rhodium. There are a lot of other metals that can be found naturally in that state. And you just kind of look for the remains of you're looking for bodies, so to speak. You see the remains of iridium over here, so that means that you're going to assume that a certain percentage of that is going to be in the diatomic state, or the non-responsive state, and the altered state, or the non-metallic state. So you look for what's around it, and then you can kind of extrapolate what you're having there. But there's no way, we have no method of testing to see exactly what's going on there. There's something obviously unique with it, but we just haven't figured out what it is yet.
So the only way to know that you have monatomic gold is if you've made it yourself.
You have to start with it, with your own gold yourself. That's the only way I can safely say that you're on the right track.
And can you turn it back into gold?
Yes, you can.
And
that's
what's that process?
The strangest part about it.
Yeah, what's that process?
Well, that's when I have not been gifted with that information yet. But I do know people who are able to flip it back over into gold. So that way, you and I off the air, we were talking about using safes
right.
in our house for safekeeping, and if you have converted gold into white powder gold, then someone coming into your house to steal your gold, you could just have it laying in a jar on the counter and nobody would even know what it is. How much safer can you be?
Yeah, you'd still go to jail for something else if they found big bags of white powder in the house. It's just gold. Put your hands behind your back, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when certainly some of the recent archaeological discoveries that have happened, where they are talking about finding white powder and in different caves and so forth, and also going back throughout history, going back millennia, these descriptions of white powder being used for a lot of different things, and well, you know what? I don't want to. I want to stay a little bit focused here. I have so many questions, but it's the discoveries have been made, and we know that it goes back to millennia. How did the ancients, before we get to the pyramids, how did the ancients have any idea about breaking down gold into powder? I mean, where did this knowledge come from?
My God. I mean, that is the money question, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And I can honestly say I do not know if based on any of the reliefs and any of the information that I have looked up and Lawrence Gardner has looked up, there's nothing that specifically states how they did it. That's why this has become a dead end for so many people. Now, there's plenty of reliefs and hieroglyphics that are telling stories that show why they take it, why they eat it and consume it. But it mainly revolves around the soul's journey. You find it next to the Anubis. They're feeding it to the Anubis, which is reflective of the digestive system. They also have it being served to royalty, the pharaohs, the initiates. So there's many. They are talking about why it's being used on the surface a little bit, but again, these descriptions are found in areas that were not available to the public. In those times, it was only the elite that were being shown this because they were being talked to in symbolic language to show them what's going to happen to them when they do consume this stuff. But when it comes to how they were making it, it's nearly impossible to discern that without getting your hands dirty and really being given a hint. You have to be given a hint.
Well, we have. I want to discuss the modern uses really quick, and then we'll discuss what they were doing millennia ago. Modern uses. Some of the reports that in my research, invisibility, anti-gravity. If it comes in contact with certain things, things become lighter. Stealth properties to it as well. There's a bunch of uses for it that are external of the human body. And again, as fantastical and as crazy as it sounds, these are some of the reports through the testing of it and today. But why would somebody ingest it today? What are the modern reasons for doing it?
What I found was that it was being identified as an anti-inflammatory. Mm-hmm. It was one thing. If you want, we can kind of go walk down the path of what sent me on that, because it was a health journey. We can spend a moment talking about that. Yes.
Let's do it. Well, I haven't, like I said, I've never seen it. I've never, so therefore, I've never taken it or ingested it, drank it, smelled it, or seen it. But you have. So let's go right there, right now.
Okay. So I ended up making it myself in the end. That's how I got there. But originally, what happened was I was diagnosed with something called ulcerative colitis. And ulcerative colitis is not the most familiar of this disease family, but irritable bowel syndrome would be one that is more familiar to folks, or Crohn's disease. They're all part of the same family, and it's basically the same thing going on in your intestinal tract, just at different locations in your body. And what it is it's an irritated location in your bowel that will never go away, and your proctologist will tell you that is never going to go away. And that's what I was told. And I was told that I had to take a medication called Asacol, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. Well, we'll call this one out, because guess what? I'm not taking it anymore. And Asacol, after I had my colonoscopy and I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, my doctor told me that I had to take Asacol for the rest of my life. And it is a highly potent NSAID. It's like ibuprofen with a specific coating, just to make sure that it makes it all the way to your colon.
Right.
And then it delivers the medicine there. And it's expensive. And what I found out is that my insurance, which I previously thought was awesome, full coverage insurance, was not so awesome or full coverage. And it was $600 a month. My portion was $600 a month after the insurance covered the rest of it. So I quickly learned that it was going to be very expensive. This is going to be an expensive disease, and I want to make sure that I can kick this on my own. So I spent a lot of time researching options. So the first one I stumbled upon was actually turmeric, the Indian spice turmeric, the stuff that stains everything yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started taking that. I took probably 10 to 20 times the amount that was recommended for that type of inflammation. But after 2 weeks, I stopped having any symptoms whatsoever. But
you turned yellow.
Yeah. Yeah, I turned yellow. But it was staining everything yellow. I mean, my fingers did, because I was getting it everywhere. But I did find an extract that came in a capsule form, so that kept me from having to do that.
Right.
But it was still getting expensive, because the amount of extract that I had to take was still maybe $150 a month to get the same result as the Asacol.
Right.
But the good news was that I was able to stop taking the Asacol altogether. So when I was consistently spending $150 to $200 a month on the turmeric, now, I was spending $600 a month. Now I'm spending $150 to $200. But it was still good, because now, I look back on an Asacol, if I were to have to come out of pocket now, it'd be $900 a month. So it's getting more expensive. So this was still a good investment. So after a few weeks of taking the turmeric, then I realized that it was going to be expensive. So I just did more research to find out what else I could do. And that's when I stumbled upon white powder gold or monoatomic gold. and I took it specifically just to see how it would work on my inflammation. So I then made a transition, and I stopped taking the turmeric, and I moved into the Monatomic Gold. And mind you, this one was a weak version. It was actually a naturally occurring one that I was taking that had a lot of bentonite mixed in with it to kind of soften it up and make it so it wasn't as potent as what I would make at home. But it was still expensive because I was buying somebody else's product. And then so I did some more research, and I learned how to make it myself. And I made a much more potent one, and that's when I did that. I started to have my connection epiphany downloads that showed me how it was going to connect to the Great Pyramid, because I was making this over and over again, and I had a really good idea of how each step would work. And then when I saw some of the ideas of other people suggesting that maybe the pyramid would be making it, no one actually put everything together. And I said, I'm going to sit down and just prove this wrong, because there's no way that pyramid's doing that. So I sat down and I put all the pieces together, and I went through my process, and I compared how the pyramid might be able to do it. And then that's how I was able to corroborate the two. But yes, it was a health journey. I was able to get to a point where I had basically cured myself from ulcerative colitis, and then along the way had an amazing, discovery for humankind. Hopefully it proves out to be that way, but we'll see. Time will tell.
When we look at the cost of an ounce of gold, this is just a logistical, technical question. When you look at an ounce of gold, whatever it is, it's over $1,000, it's under $2,000. Let's say it's $1,500 an ounce. How much monatomic gold are you getting? Is it that expensive? How much are you extracting and turning into white powder? An ounce of gold. How much monatomic gold are you getting from that?
It expands out on an amazing level. So basically, if I'm taking a gram of gold, a 24-karat gold that I use as kind of flaked. You can get it from a coin and shave it off if you want to, or you can buy it pre-shaved or pre-flaked.
Right.
And it's expanding on an unbelievable level. It'll turn into like a fourth of a cup. If you start with a gram of gold, it will turn into a fourth of a cup of the white powder. And that lasts you a long time. It really does.
So it's not that expensive then in the end.
In the end,
it sounds expensive.
What you use it for? If you're going to use it to go, mix it with your water and water your plants with it, then it's going to be expensive plant water. But if you're going to use it on yourself, then in my opinion, it's the best use.
And how do you ingest it, by the way?
You can do several different ways. You can dry it out, and then you can put it in your mouth, and you can let it sit underneath your tongue for a while, and let it go through your sublingually under your tongue and dissolve that way and get into your blood system. Or what I prefer to do is leave it in the precipitate state, suspended in water, and ingest it that way.
Drink it.
Yeah.
What does it taste like? Is it metallic? I have a gold watch sitting right in front of me. If I lick that watch, is that the taste that we're talking about?
No, it has absolutely no taste whatsoever. It's non-responsive.
So it doesn't taste like carbon paper, that metallic taste?
It's going to taste like whatever your water tastes like.
Really?
Yeah. It'll just have a slightly cloudy feature in it, suspended in it.
And so I don't want to name any manufacturers or anything out there. That's not what this show is about. But the best way to do it, the only way that you can actually trust, is to make it yourself.
That's my opinion.
Is it illegal?
No, it's not illegal. But here's the thing. You mean, are you asking if it's illegal to sell it? Or
no, is it illegal to make it? It sounds almost like you're making crack cocaine, it's got that. You're making your own drugs at home, As a matter of fact, you're making a white powder at home.
Hey, it's
and I'm not being
on the end product. If you're making crack, then you can get busted for making crack.
Well, I'm not making fun of it at all. If your neighbors caught you doing this, if somebody was looking through the window, they're going to think something crazy. You know what I mean? And so it feels a little dirty to me. That's all. It just feels a little wrong. But
hey, for me, all I have to do is hand them my book and say, "Here, go find out why I'm doing
right. this." Oh man. So it's not illegal. I don't know if it would probably be totally illegal to sell without some kind of license. But to make it in your own home, all you're doing is taking 24 karat gold and turning it into a powder, right?
That's correct.
That's it, and it's not illegal. Okay, I feel a little more comfortable talking about it. Okay, so then, how did you get dosages? How did you know what to do in the beginning?
I didn't know what to do. I had to play around with it myself. And what I will say is that everyone's going to be different. If there's one thing I do know, it's going to be that everyone's dosage level is going to be different at different stages. For me, I had to take what would be considered a load dose, a heavy load dose at the beginning, because I must have been deficient in something, because I was not getting a lot of response from it at the very beginning. And then after a couple weeks of taking a heavy load dose on the front end, then I started to feel the effects, and I was able to back off. And now, after a couple of years, I'm just taking maybe a dropper full a week.
Okay, a couple of quick questions that are flying into Twitter here. Is it addictive? Number one. Is it addictive?
I don't think so, because if I'm starting out with a lot and then backing off to a little, then I would say that'd be opposite of addictive.
Or you were weaning yourself off. You could look at it.
Be, yeah. But it's not like I'm going out of my way to try to stop.
Sure. What about quitting cold turkey?
Yeah.
No effects?
Yeah.
And so you could say once you were healed and stopping the consumption, you have no issues with that? You wouldn't have any kind of side effects?
No, I've done it a few times. I've stopped a few times and quit for about a month and a half, and I didn't really notice anything. I just continued to take it because I like the dreams.
That's where. How did you know I was going to say that? How did you know? Okay, so when you're looking, you've got internal problems with yourself that you're trying to get healed. And you start taking that, and then these dreams started. Did you make the connection immediately that it might be the monatomic gold, or?
Actually, when it comes to the download from the ET figure, so to speak,
right.
That was before I even knew anything about monatomic gold. It would have been after. So it was the beginning of 2013. When I started my monatomic gold research, but that vision came to me in July of 2012.
Of 2012, but I'm referring to the dreams you just referred to yourself.
Yes.
So how did you make that connection? In other words, did you stop taking the monatomic gold? The dream stopped. And was it like that?
It was really the other way around. It actually sent me into an unusual dream state on the beginning of the path, and then just backing off of it because let me back up a little bit. What happened at the beginning of this, once it started to actually come into phase and started working, was I would take some right before I went to bed, and I actually would not go into a normal sleep cycle. I would actually, instead of drifting off into sleep, which scientists would say today that you're going into a physical maintenance mode, where you're literally releasing toxins from your body in a physical maintenance stage. That's when you're completely unconscious and you're not dreaming at that state. And then you naturally shift into REM, and you move out of the maintenance stage and you move into what would be the psychologically healing stage, or the spiritually healing stage, which would be your dream state.
Right.
Which we're only really starting to understand today. I mean, we're only at the beginning of understanding dreams and the dream state at even today. But what was happening was I was actually shifting into the dream state without even going into the unconscious maintenance state. and I was completely conscious, shifting into the dream. It was the most unusual thing that I could possibly describe. I don't even know how to describe it. But you're conscious. I like, okay, good night, honey. I'm going to close my eyes now. And then now I'm dreaming.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, when we come back, we're at the top of the hour. Let's take a quick break. When I come back, I have to ask, the question is, and I want you to think about this, could you control your dreams? Could you steer what you were about to dream about under Monatomic Gold? I'm totally curious. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Spencer Cross, Monatomic Gold. And we're going to discuss the Great Pyramids of Giza when we come back. Stay with us.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
Are you a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, or UFO skywatcher? If so, FNGinnovations.com has the product you definitely need in your investigations kit or go bag. Introducing the Morpholite Wide Beam Tactical Flashlights that put the light where you need it most. Traditional flashlights shine a focused round beam with limited line of sight in the dark. Morpholite Tactical Flashlights change all that, utilizing a revolutionary wide beam design to enable you to see safety hazards such as hanging wires and steel, pipes, and holes in the floor you just can't see with a focused round beam. In the field, where safety is paramount, a 180-degree beam increases orientation and peripheral vision in the dark. Morpholite flashlights are ideal for investigations in abandoned facilities such as houses and hospitals, factories, caves, and tunnels. Avoid those low-hanging tree branches that poke your eyes in the woods. Visit FNGinnovations.com to see a full line of tactical lights and accessories. That's FNGinnovations.com.
Now you can find all your favorite talk radio shows live, all in one place at TalkStreamLive.com. Listen from anywhere, office, home, or in your car. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com and click on one of the many live talk show hosts you want to listen to. It's free and easy. No computer? Download the smartphone apps. Never miss your favorite talk show. Find them all at TalkStreamLive.com.
Hi, Ray Hobbs here with KGRA. Spring is just around the corner here in Northwest Arkansas, and that means it's almost time for the 28th Annual Ozark Mountain UFO Conference, continuing a time-honored tradition of bringing thought-provoking information about other worlds around us. Join me and the KGRA crew April 10th through the 12th in beautiful Eureka Springs, Arkansas, for another great lineup of speakers, including investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe, the National UFO Reporting Center's Peter Davenport, returning to Ozark as this year's keynote speaker, author and American historian Richard Dolan, and many more. The KGRA will be there broadcasting live all weekend. Register and reserve your seating early and pick up a free membership from the KGRA and Ozark Mountain Publishing. Visit www.ozarkufoconference.com for tickets and information. That's ozarkufoconference.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black. Another great evening of discovery right here. Bespoke radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Spencer Cross, Monatomic Gold, the Great Pyramid of Giza. Spencer, how did you make the connection? I mean, when you're going through the healing process, and you've had, all of this stuff is coming at you at once, it seems, in a very short period of time. You had the download in July of 2012, right?
Yes.
And then, a little bit of an illness. You're correcting that. Monatomic Gold comes into your life. Now you're having, I guess you could call it lucid dreaming, and you're dreaming, and you're making these connections. And then the avalanche of the Great Pyramid comes into play. A little bit overwhelming, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. It is overwhelming. And before the break, you asked, would you be able to control your dreams?
Yes.
And I would like to point everyone to a book by Robert Wagner where he discusses lucid dreaming and how to do that. And I would say that, yes, it does happen, and you can. But what I would like to back up a little bit on is that the problem I was running into with taking that large amount, and shifting directly into REM sleep, I was getting outside of the maintenance mode, where I was not actually physically healing my body during sleep. I wasn't actually getting completely unconscious, and I was not waking up relaxed in the morning at all. So I could really only take that for a couple weeks before I said, okay, I've got to back off of this, because I'm just not really getting as much relaxing sleep as I'd like to get. And when you have 3 small kids like I do that are all under 7 years old, that is taxing, to say the least. So you're already not getting much sleep when you have 3 young kids, and then you add crazy dreams to that without getting relaxing sleep, then we got to change something here. But yes, I was able to go down that path to do some significant lucid dreaming. But one thing that you're not able to do.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Did you hear that?
I did, yes.
Oh, see, that was supposed to be private. Hopefully that didn't go out over the line.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so.
Because you
I was
paused.
Hearing my own thoughts. Hey, maybe that was in my own head. I don't know.
That's kind of weird, because you paused, and I'm just wondering if that went out. No, it couldn't have. It couldn't have. That's crazy. Nobody knows what we're talking about.
No, it's just a joke between us.
Yeah. I can't have that discussion going on. So anyway, that was weird. I've never had that happen before. Maybe that was in your brain.
It was.
So how did you make the connection to the Great Pyramid? And I want everybody to go to JimmyChurchRadio.com right now. Click on Spencer's name below where it says more info, and that's going to take you to his page on Jimmy Church Radio, and you're going to look at these illustrations. And I want to we have very little time left. We have about 45 minutes if we stretch it, and maybe a little more, but I want to make sure that all of this is discussed properly. So I'm opening up step 1 here, and I want this prepared in front of me. So let's do that now. How did you make the connection to the Great Pyramid?
Well, I was researching the Great Pyramid at the time, because I kept hearing through Lawrence Gardner's work and also John Cadman, and I was listening to some of Chris Dunn's work, and they all seemed to have a really, really good idea. It just seemed like to me that if they could have just collaborated a little bit more, then they might be able to solve it, because I agreed with every single one of them. I thought that Chris Dunn did a fantastic job with his power plant theory. I thought that John Cadman did a wonderful job with describing the ram pump idea, where it was supplying water to the entire valley, and that it was pumping it out the top, and it was raising the water up. Now, I didn't really find a whole lot of evidence that it was actually shooting out of the sides of the pyramid, but I thought he was onto something, that the water was naturally elevated up into the pyramid. And then when it came to Lawrence Gardner, then his idea was that the Ark of the Covenant was placed, into the King's Chamber.
Right.
Now, I didn't exactly find a lot of that that worked with me and with Chris Dunn's work necessarily, but putting them all together, I was starting to discover that if we can take the evidence by itself and not necessarily take everyone's theory into play, but just look at the evidence, and then maybe the evidence will tell me what's going on. And that's when I matched it up with what I was doing in my own lab when I was making the monatomic gold, or the white powder gold.
Did you make a connection? Because I don't want to give you front-loaded questions. I don't want to lead you, but did you make a connection going back to your childhood when you went to Giza too as well?
No, because when I approached the pyramid, I was actually afraid to go in it. Now, mind you, I was 10 years old, 11 years old, and 10-year-old kids afraid of a lot of things. But as I got nearer to the pyramid and I kept hearing about people going into the pyramid, I just had this nagging thought in the back of my head that said, "You're stupid. That's a machine. It's dangerous." And then I just kind of left it at that. And then I never really thought about it again until this idea started to gel. I was like, wow, it really was a machine. I just had no idea how dangerous of a machine it was until I started making my own white powder gold.
In your dreams, was there ever any hint about where the pyramids came from, who built them, when they were built, and did any of that come to you? Because certainly today we know nothing. We know as much of the pyramids today as we knew 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, 2,000 years ago. We know nothing.
I would say that it is definitely significantly older than most every single theory that has come forward yet. We're talking in the 50-plus thousand years ago. Now, what I was shown that I participated in one of my incarnations when I was getting the download with the blue body, was that I was one of the, as Chris Dunn would call it, one of the guardians, one of the operators of the pyramid.
So the pyramid was in the download. You saw it.
I was shown that I had something to do with operating it in some way.
Interesting. Continue. Don't stop there.
Okay, so
don't even stop there. Oh man.
Now this is interesting and frustrating all at the same time. But what happens is I get information basically, as the military would call it, on a need-to-know basis. So for my own safety, I guess it would be one way to look at it, is I'm given what information needs to come out, but also not given the entire picture so that I do not get ahead of myself, so that we can actually make some headway and make some progress as a group, as a civilization from here. But if you want to, we can now talk about, I don't know if we're going to even have enough time to get through all 4 steps, but we can try. But I did earlier go onto your website, and I was able to get some of those pictures, and they were popping up just fine, just perfectly.
Yes. I have step 1 up now. So everybody go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on Spencer's. There's a little red tab right there. It says more info. Click on that. It'll take you to his page. You'll see the illustrations there. Click on the first one, upper left-hand corner, and that is step 1. Click on it twice. You're going to go to a smaller picture, a thumbnail. Click on it again, and you'll go full screen, and you can see everything. It's high def. Okay, step 1.
So in diagram step 1, you're going to see, we're going to start with the red lettering first. So we'll start on the right side of the slide, and you'll see that the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add salt and water down the descending passage. And when it flows down the descending passage, it's going to hit the pit well. And when it hits the pit well, what we're going to do is we're going to activate John Cadman's theory here of the ram pump, where it actually has a feature where it oscillates and it just pulsates. And that pulsation naturally will mix the salt and water together without you having to stir it or anything. It's fully automated. It just uses gravity and then the pressure inside the chamber, and then the angles of the shafts are going to help keep it going and keep it stirred. So you just let that run until it gets to C there, where it dissolves all of the salt in the water. And then at that point, when it's completely dissolved, it's pumped up on the blue. We're on the blue path. And we're at D, where it says we're pumping the dissolved saltwater solution to the king's chamber. And what we're going to do here is we're going to assume that there's a network of passages, not only underground, which is what we're discovering, that there are lots of tunnels and passageways that are previously undiscovered under the pyramid and in the Giza Plateau. So we're going to just assume that we can take advantage of some of those yet to be discovered passageways, and it's going to lead us back into the pyramid and then arrive at the top of the king chamber's shaft. And you're going to connect with the Gantabrink door that Dunn, that Christopher Dunn was talking about, that he discovered. And at the end of that door there are two probes, copper probes.
Right.
And when the shaft is full, because what happens when it pours down that shaft, it hits a block, and there's actually a gap there that's beneficial to this process, by the way, where the flow stops and it starts building up and filling up that shaft. And when it reaches the top of the shaft, it will hit the two probes that then turn the switch off. And this switch, if it's running through an electronic network, mind you, could be being run off of the Baghdad battery type technology, if you can remember some of that.
Yes.
That we've been introduced to. So theoretically, they did have the ability to run electric current. So we're going to say that there was a switch operating automatically there, and when that liquid reaches the top, it turns the flow off. Now you've reached the optimal pressure that you want for that to then seep slowly into the king's chamber. So
that's interesting, and that's a pretty good theory for why Gayton Brink's the plug. We don't have the time to get into that, but the plug for the listeners, the plug has two copper half circles that are embedded into the block itself. Nobody knows why it's there. It's there. This is a very interesting theory that contact was made between the two copper rings and turned it into a switch. That's pretty interesting.
Wait till you hear the next part of it, because it had a dual purpose too.
Okay, let's go. Is that step 2?
Now we're still in step 1, but now we're on E.
Okay.
So within that same electric network that we use to turn the switch off, now we're going to activate an electric current that has a completely different voltage and amperage. And this current is applying electrolysis to the salt water that is inside the king's chamber. And what that does, then this is the amazing part, it makes a basic liquid. It makes chlorine gas on the one hand, and then it makes also sodium hydroxide on the other hand. And sodium hydroxide is an essential part of what I do when I'm making white powder gold. I mean, without sodium hydroxide, I have none. There's no way to flip it essentially across neutral from the acid. And then we'll talk about making the acid here in step 2 in a minute. But it's just amazing that on the one hand, the liquid is turning into sodium hydroxide, which is a basic liquid. And then the gases that are going to be vented out the other side of the chamber is literally chlorine gas. And what we're going to do with that is on F, the electrolysis released chlorine gas and then sent up the shaft to yet another undiscovered chamber for storage. There's two options here, actually. One, it can be stored in this chamber, or it can be sent directly down the path. And we'll talk about what it's going to do next on slide 2. But that is to me, that was an amazing operation there, where all you had to do was flip a switch from saying, okay, this Ganterbrink activator is going to not only turn off the flow, but it can also then electrify the entire chamber and then turn the salt water into a completely different substance, which is sodium hydroxide, and then also vent off chlorine gas to yet another part of the pyramid.
The symbols that were found right behind Gatenbrink's door when they probed it with the camera, were you able to tie those symbols into this?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not been able to figure out what that means and why that's there.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I've tried to too. I've I've stared at that for hours trying to figure it out, and nobody has. Okay, so step 2.
All right, step 2. We're on slide number 2, step 2. So now we're going to start again on the right on the right side where A is. Now remember, from step 1, we have stored. We're leaving the sodium hydroxide in the King's chamber, and we're also storing the chlorine gas on the right side of the diagram there. So now we're going to, the pit at the bottom has been cleared. So what we're going to do now is add some more water to it, and this is going to be Nile River water. Now, mind you, that in my theory, we have to assume that also the Nile was significantly closer to the pyramid than it is today.
And we know that it was. So
it's a foregone conclusion, I would say.
Certainly is. So the green is the chlorine gas, the green section. Okay. The Nile River is the blue section of the water entering on the right side of your diagram.
Right. Okay. So A, the water is going down into the pit, and B, we're going to send the pressurized chlorine gas down into the pit well, and it's going to C, percolate in through the fresh water. And what I learned, because this is kind of a place where I got hung up, I got a little bit stuck, and all I had to do was ask around to some of the people that had some chemical engineering experience. I told them where I got stuck, and the suggestion was that you can actually use the chlorine gas that's already there and percolate it through the water, and guess what it makes? Hydrochloric acid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be essential to the first step when it comes to actually getting into the nitty-gritty and doing something with the gold. The hydrochloric acid is the first step. So that's where we are with C. And now we're going to move on to the gold line, which is going to be D, and we're going to pump that hydrochloric acid into the Queen's chamber that we just made. So
this seems almost too simple.
I know. Doesn't it?
Yes. I mean, it just seems too simple. Okay, so the hydrochloric acid is now pumped up, and that's going into the Queen's chamber, which is below the King's chamber. The shafts are already there. We know that. Very interesting. Okay, so now this is going down into the Queen's chamber. What happens next?
Okay, so now we have them stored. We have two completely opposite pH solutions that are beautifully stored for us for future use at a higher location in the pyramid from where we like to perform the action. Okay, because you have the ascended passageway right there. And they're both connected to it, so all you have to do is flip switches, and they're going to flow. And you're going to see that in step 2. It's beautiful.
I'm looking at it in step 2, and it is beautiful. It's just too simple, and that's exactly why it works. Yeah, this is wow. My head's about to explode. I'm going to try to keep my mind wrapped around this. Okay.
Now you know why. I mean, my book is rather small. It's less than 200 pages long. But when I came to this conclusion and I actually drew it out and drafted it out on my drafting board, I was like, oh, I've got to send this out immediately. I mean, it's too easy. It's too simple. We need to get collaboration on this and work on this together quickly. And yet 2 years later, we're still kind of stuck here, and I'm twiddling my thumbs waiting for other people to collaborate with me. But maybe after your show, hopefully that'll change.
Yeah, that action is going to happen. What about your chemist? Yeah, you don't have to worry about that part. That's going to come. What about your chemist buddies when you're showing them this? Do they suggest and say, yes, this is entirely feasible. This is entirely possible?
Yes. The first answer is not only is it entirely feasible, but what you're describing here, especially when I'm talking with the international high-level folks, they said this is how we make hydrochloric acid at our plant. This is how we make sodium hydroxide at our plant. So yes, these are the processes that they use. Now, mind you, they're using much more polished and refined equipment. What we would consider polished and refined equipment, but what we may discover in a not too distant future is that the pyramid actually was a much more beautiful component and piece of equipment. But they use steel and beautiful piping that runs miles and miles and miles to create this stuff. But yes, this is how they make it. It's amazing.
So you could almost, I could see you pulling up into Giza with a bunch of water trucks, right? Yeah.
Okay, Zahi.
Yeah, right.
Let's do this.
Exactly where I was going, But it would work, wouldn't it? Yes. Yeah, this is fascinating. Okay, let's go to step 3.
To your point, regardless whether the pyramid actually was used for that, then it is almost irrelevant to me because I know that I could make it today in the pyramid.
Yes.
That's my point to this whole thing.
Yes.
So anyway.
Yeah. My frontal lobes have just exploded in the studio here. It's just, this is pretty interesting. Cortana just tweeted, I'll just jump in here. She said, the simplest answer is usually the correct one.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it?
Okay, step 3. Let's see, where's A? Okay,
A is at the bottom this time.
Yes, it is.
It's in red. And red, this is when we place the gold. Are we ready for the money shot?
Yes, let's do it.
The gold in the pit now. Okay, this is where we get started. We've already made our chemicals that we need, and now we're just going to place the gold into the pit. So, and the pit is an interesting place. If you see some nice photographs of it, you'll see that there are raised tables and mesas, scattered throughout through the pit, and you can easily place lots of stuff there. I mean, it could be gold, it could be anything, but it's going to stay suspended in there, and you have some nice areas to place it. So it's friendly to you putting something in there, and then adding some other liquids to flow on top of it. So then we go to B. And we're adding Nile River water again, and it's flowing down the descending passage, and it's combining with the gold. And at this point, we are going because you can't just add, based on my creating white powder gold, you can't just add straight hydrochloric acid. It's too strong, and it also will happen a little bit too quickly, and you'll have a reaction that kind of gets out of control at every step. So you want to dilute everything.
Well, okay, that's probably why it's also deep underneath the pyramid, too, as well.
Bingo.
Yes, yes.
Exactly. Okay, so we're adding the desired amount of water so that we can dilute the hydrochloric acid, because we want the acid to go a long way here because we have a lot to do. And we go to C now, which is the yellow, and it says release hydrochloric acid from Q and let it flow into the pit and mix with the water. Okay, now we can go a couple different directions here, and I've done it both ways. If you want to wait a really, really long time and you're really patient, then hydrochloric acid by itself will dissolve the gold and with the salt, because it's combining to make gold chloride, and then it becomes a beautiful yellow color solution. All the suspended gold eventually dissolves and becomes a yellow color. Now, with D, you can also add hydrogen peroxide, and it speeds up the reaction significantly. And that's where you kind of have to speculate at that point as to whether or not you're going to be using the underground tunnel system to then augment this and catalyze it with the hydrogen peroxide. That's where it gets kind of complicated. But again, I'm going to say that you don't have to use it. It's just preferred if you're, in a hurry.
Okay.
All right, so we're now somewhere around a 1 to a -1 pH level, and the gold is beginning to dissolve, and we're going to assume now it's completely dissolved into gold chloride, and we're going to move on to step 4.
Doing that now. Step 4, everybody.
Okay. Now A is actually in the center of the pyramid. It's in purple. I'm colorblind too, which is a curse, but I'm assuming that's purple.
Yes, it is. It looks purple to me.
Okay, so now we're going to release the sodium hydroxide, which is also known as lye, from the king's chamber, and you can pull up the dampers from the antechamber there, and it's going to flow nicely down, and you can do this really, really slowly, because this is where some problems can be created. And this is where I'm going to talk about this is not in my book, but this is something that I discovered as corroborating circumstantial evidence that actually Stephen Mailer discovered when he wrote From Light into Darkness, and he shared this with us. Have you had him on to discuss that?
Yes.
Okay, because that is such a beautiful piece of work. I love it.
Yes, it is.
And so what I found in his work is that he shows that there are signs of scarring and carbon explosion and lots of violent reactions going on in the Grand Gallery there on the ascending passage.
Yes.
And at first I didn't really think a lot about it. But then after I reread that section, I remembered a time when I was making my Monatomic Gold where I did have a violent reaction, and it boiled over and spilled all over the countertop and stained it black.
Yeah,
So-
and we need to stay focused here. But when he points out the irregularities that are regular, or in the Grand Gallery, you don't notice it at first, but then you start to look, and it does have that feeling of something there other than air.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, if it's a Grand Gallery and that's all it was, and it was an entrance into the King's Chamber, there shouldn't be that consistent staining everywhere.
Right.
Am I making sense? Okay, I want to stay focused here. Okay, so it's releasing down through the Grand Gallery, down the passageway, and then back down to the subchamber.
Right.
Okay.
So it's going down the ascending and then also down the descending passageway, and all the action is taking place in the pit.
I always wondered, and this would make a lot of sense, even though this has been discussed in different theories, but why those two passageways would be like they were. If it was just an ascending passage that you were going up into the Grand Gallery, it wouldn't be that complicated of an entrance to go up, unless it was designed to go down. Do you understand what I'm saying? To come back down because then you're just going to jump down into the lower passage, into the lower chamber.
Right.
But
and
it
why
always
weren't they separated? Why wasn't one on the other side?
Yes, that's my point. That's exactly my point. It was too complicated to just make it an entrance to go up.
Right.
Yes. Okay, continue. This is brilliant. This is just frigging brilliant.
You're going to love it more here in a minute. So it's all flowing. You've got the acidic solution in the pit right now. Oh, and also to your point, I mean, have you ever noticed how much erosion is significantly more erosion in the pit than any other chamber in the entire pyramid?
Yeah, totally.
Have you thought about that?
Yeah, totally unclean, totally worn down, totally imperfect.
Wouldn't you think it might be because there's significant reactions going on in the pit?
Well, yeah. Well, when you go into that room, it looks like it looks older than everything else. It looks worn
really
down.
does.
It looks rounded. It's there's something wrong. It looks like rocks that you would see, on an ocean shore, as opposed to something that is down in the middle of the desert. It looks totally eroded and worn down.
Bingo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not the clean petri dish or tomb that you'll find in other locations.
No.
It's
Totally out of place.
Amazingly different, and it's all in the same building. I mean,
it is.
And you'd think, okay, well, did they not use the same requirements, the mechanical precision here versus in the Queen Chamber and in the King's Chamber?
Right.
No, it was used there originally, but it was used heavily. And it was eroded, and it was also lots of chemical reactions, violent chemical reactions were occurring in that location. So it makes a lot of sense for it to look significantly older and eroded, at least to me. And it sounds like you think so too.
I mean, it doesn't match. It doesn't match. It's just totally out of place. It just doesn't match, and I've often wondered about that. So so now. We're.
Okay, so
you know what? Hold on. I just missed a break. See, I'm totally wrapped up in this. Let's take our last break, and then we'll ride this one out. Just stay with us. I'm totally.
Sorry about that.
I'm sucked in, man. I'm totally sucked in. All right, this is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. One last quick break, and we'll be back with Spencer Cross We're on step 4. Step 4 of the pyramid. Get your illustrations ready. We'll be back right after this short break. Stay with us.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Attention, all Fade or Not. Studio Dome has a special deal on their SD1 Bluetooth speaker. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on their banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, and you get $40 off and free shipping on the SD1. It's voice activated, comes with a USB antenna, cables, and a carry bag. Never listen to your phone, tablet, or laptop speakers ever again. It's the only way to listen to Fade to Black. That's jimmychurchradio.com, Studio Dome banner, promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. May arrives soon, and with it comes another Contact in the Desert. So join me in Joshua Tree, California, for the 3rd annual Contact in the Desert Conference being held May 29th through the 31st. 2015 brings another awesome lineup of speakers, including publisher of Legendary Times, Giorgio Tsoukalos, New York Times bestselling author David Wilcock, journalist and conspiracy expert Jim Mars, former head of UFO Project for the MOD Nick Pope, investigative reporter Linda Moulton Howe, author and contactee Travis Walton, UFO historian Richard Dolan, and many more. You don't want to miss this. Fade to Black and KGRA will be there broadcasting live May 29th. Just visit contactinthedesert.com for tickets and information. That's contactinthedesert.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, we're having a science fair. That's what we're doing. Spencer Cross is with us, Monatomic Gold. We're discussing the process of making monatomic gold in the Great Pyramid. We are at step 4. And Spencer, I'll let you take us away here. Let's go to step A.
So where we left off from was we were releasing the sodium hydroxide from the King's chamber, and it flows right, nicely down the ascending chamber and down into the descending passage, rather not chamber but passage, and then it goes into the pit. And what you want to do here is you want to very gently feather this. You want to, because when I'm making mine, if you just add all of it at one time, then you get the violent explosion and violent reaction that Stephen Mailer is hinting at when he's discussing some of those char marks in the Grand Gallery. And, we've covered a lot of ground here today, but I definitely want to point out that is actually a new connection that we've run into, and that is pretty significant that Stephen Mailer has that in his book. It's pretty amazing that when I saw that, I said that is the reason why you got the char marks is because someone, I believe, this is just a theory again, as the guardian, the former guardian of the pyramid, I guess, someone did release too much sodium hydroxide and too quickly, and it reacted with the hydrochloric acid and the gold chloride mix at the pit, and then erupted throughout the pyramid, and then it would have fumed violently somewhere around that area. Because if you look how narrow those passageways are, you got the descending passageway and then the ascending passageway are about the same width and height. But when you reach the Grand Gallery, that's an opportunity for the reaction to expand and become a little bit more violent right there. So it would make a lot of sense to me that a hot boiling liquid that is black would then settle up in the ceiling there and fume and get stuck into those rocks, because it stained my counter when it erupted in my house when I made it too. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Oh, man. I'm going to let that go. There's too many good jokes there. Now, with the weight of the pyramid, and looking at the diagram here, would the weight of the pyramid help control the pressures that are involved here?
To a certain extent, yes. But when you're dealing with a violently expanding reaction, at some point you're going to have it's going to give somewhere. You're going to have some type of some reaction where you're going to have some weakness and you're going to get some expanding. And in fact, in the King's Chamber, they did discover that there was some expansion and there were cracks that showed that it did move a couple inches in almost every direction, as if there was a violent reaction.
Sure. Now, when all is said and done at the completion of step 4, feathering and so forth, gently doing this in the lower chamber, were there literally, piles of monatomic gold that were left?
Well, as far as I know, there was not anything discovered in the pyramid. Sure. But I mean, after these process, how much gold were they left with in the lower chamber? It would just completely depend on how much they started with. So let's say if they started with maybe 1 ounce, then they would end up with probably it would probably expand out about 10 to 15 times from that as to how much powder. But I would imagine they were making this on a much grander scale than that.
Right. Now, the $1 million question here is, in the lower chamber, is there a passage, when I'm looking at step D, and that tunnel, that passage that's being used a few different times in this process, does that tunnel exist?
We know that it goes out a little bit, but no one has been able to figure out where it ends. So we know it goes somewhere, but we don't know where it ends yet.
Because if that does exist, then all of this is correct.
My God, I mean, it would just. I mean, also imagine if we could find some other shafts in the pyramid that then connect to the shafts that we already know about.
Right.
That would be another amazing discovery.
This is absolutely incredible. It makes a lot of sense.
There's a lot to learn. There's a lot more to know about the pyramid. We obviously know that. I mean, we learn something new in the Giza Plateau every year. There's much more to be discovered, I can assure you.
Unbelievable. Okay, before we run out of time, and I've absorbed this. I don't listen to my own shows, but I'm going to go back and listen to this one again. Let's go back to your the photographs here. Oh, there's a question here I want to get clarified. Where did the ancients come? Where did they get the chemicals, the hydrochloric acid? Is all of this naturally occurring?
No, they were making it.
They were making
inside the pyramid. They were making it. It was almost a completely automated process.
And I know that you explained that. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Everything that happened, all the chemicals that were created, happened inside the pyramid through this process.
Yeah. Let me clarify, because I mean we talked about a lot today. I'm sorry that I really hit everybody with an information bomb. But here's what's happening. This is what you need. You need water, salt, gold, and electricity.
That's it.
That's all you need.
That's it.
That's it.
So hydrochloric acid, everything else happens with water, salt, gold, and electricity.
Yes.
Interesting.
It's amazing. It's beautiful.
It's too simple. It's too simple, man. It's too simple. It's just amazing. Okay, what are we looking at in photograph number 1?
Okay, I have to find that out.
It's the one. It's yellow with a quarter in front of the beaker.
Oh, okay. So these, I don't have these in front of me, but if you give me a little bit of a description, I can help walk through these. So if you look at the water level or the fluid level in those beakers, what you're going to find there is this is just an example of my process. And if I were to walk you through each one of those, we'd be going through a lot of redundancy because we've really discussed a lot of what my process is already.
Right.
But then the first one, you look at the one that has the gold in it. You can see the flakes in it, and it has the lowest fluid level in the beaker.
Right.
And I think that should have a quarter in front of it as well. It helps just for scale.
Yes.
Okay. So that, and the one that has the gold in it, where it's not dissolved yet, and has the quarter in front of it, that is the gold that is just suspended in water and salt.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's obvious that you have the solids. You see the gold solids just floating around in there, and that's just right after I stirred it to agitate it so that you can see it suspended.
Okay, picture number 2 that I'm looking at here. Now we're looking at the quarter in the beaker, but it's brown.
Okay. Let's, if you don't mind, let's back into. Okay, now I'm seeing it. Okay, photo number 1. You have it numbered a little differently than how I have it numbered, but okay. So we'll look at the number 2, 3. If I could walk through that, what I would be looking at is number 1 says salt water and undissolved gold. That's one we just discussed. And then number 2 would be mostly dissolved gold and gold chloride, and that's where you see the water level is just barely above the quarter.
Yes.
But it's a perfectly yellow, beautiful yellow color, and you just barely see a couple specks of gold at the bottom. Do you see that one by any chance?
I picture number 2 here is brown. It looks like it's spongy.
Okay. That one is going to be after I've already added some sodium hydroxide to it, and I've flipped it across neutral, and it's now in the 10.78 pH range.
Gotcha. Okay, then picture number 3 looks like a bottle of milk. It's almost full.
That is actually the final stage. That's what your white powder gold is going to look like when it's in complete precipitation and all of the gold has been completely beat up. All the metallic bonds have been broken apart, and now you've got the final stage where it is suspended white powder gold in water.
And then picture number 4, it's half full. So this is, you're bringing it back and forth. Is that what this is?
When it's half full and it still has some white stuff at the bottom?
Yes.
Okay, that is one of probably 6 jars that I have all laid out, where they're all half a gallon jars.
Right.
And that is the second to last stage, where I'm letting it precipitate and fall down slowly, and then I'm racking off, and I make my own beer too, so I'm using beer terms here, but you're racking off the top water and leaving the sediment at the bottom, and then you combine them to get that last photograph that we just looked at, where it's almost a completely full half a gallon jar. Now, remembering that last photograph that we looked at, the 2 gallon jar that was almost full that you said,
right?
That was from 1.5 grams of gold. That's how little gold it took to make that much white powder gold suspension.
Wow.
That tells you how much it's expanding and unfolding and breaking apart. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it is. It is. And picture number 5, which looks like, and sorry for my description of how I'm describing it, but it looks like chocolate milk, right? It's the jar is half full. And what stage is this?
And again, that's going to be, when you see it in a dark stage like that, then that's going to be on a positive of neutral. So you're at 10.78, and you're going back and forth against neutral. So if we pretended like neutral was 0, you're basically going back and forth across 0, neutral, and you're beating it up over and over again. That's why you see so many similar photographs, is because on the one side, when it's dissolved, it's going to be yellow or green. And then the other side, when it's reprecipitated and reintroduced into this world, so to speak, then it's going to be on the basic side, and it basically coagulates and precipitates out, and it changes color. So you basically kind of start with, yellow, and then you flip it over, and then it turns red, and then you flip it back over, then it turns green, then you flip it back over again, and then it turns dark brown, then you flip it back over, and then it turns green again, and then when you flip it back over, it's purple, and then that when it hits that purple stage or black, then that's telling me it's time to cook it. Literally, it's time to heat it up, and you cook it for like an entire day at a specified heat. I'm not going to get too detailed because I don't want to blow up anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then you open it up, and then you neutralize it at the end, and then you have your white powder gold suspension that you saw there in that half-gallon jar.
How long for the entire process?
If you want to do it right, perfectly right, where you completely dissolve everything and you get it to its most expanded state, it could take 3 months to 6 months.
Shut up.
No.
Okay, so this isn't okay, you're committed.
It's a commitment.
This is a commitment.
That's why I don't think I could have reached this if I did not have my health problem, because my goal was to heal myself. And so that meant that I had to make it myself in order to heal myself.
Are you in the stage of making it right now?
No, I have enough to last me for quite a while right now.
Oh, man. I feel like we're talking about drugs. This is just so funny. Well, I guess we are in a weird way. But so you're totally cooked up and ready to go. So you have enough. When you say... I want something to be clarified right now.
Sure.
I like the way that you're very strongly suggesting if you are going to mess with this at all, you make it yourself. It's the only way to guarantee anything, because you don't know what you're getting, and there's no way to test if you have monatomic gold. Correct?
Without spending like $3,000 to $4,000 on testing, no, there's no way to know.
So something comes to you in the mail, you buy something from somebody you don't know on the internet, and you get a bag of white powder, you have no clue, and you're very dangerously messing with your own life.
That's right. It's very dangerous. I do not recommend it at all.
Okay, so is the best way to do it the only way to do it is to manufacture it yourself. And again, I don't want to name anybody, and I want to keep myself legally in the clear here, but the people that are selling bottles of pills of monatomic gold on the internet, stay away from any of that.
Well, I don't want to make anybody mad that spends time doing this, and they very well could be making the right product, but I would shy away from that. And this is coming from someone who has a wife who is a compliance officer for a large health group.
Right.
So, I have her nagging in my ear telling me that I have to be very careful. Obviously, I cannot sell this because then I would be violating many FDA rules.
Right.
But what we can do is we can teach people how to make it themselves. As long as we have the proper chemical safeguards in place, and we can learn from our current chemical industry on how to be safe when making this and using these dangerous chemicals, that's a way out. That is the way. I think that's the way forward is individuals empowering themselves. I'm not, you're not buying fish, you're learning to fish. That's the goal here.
Right. That was good. I like that. I like that a lot. I just want to I want to keep myself in the clear here too. I don't want anybody blowing up their houses. I don't want anything like that. But if you do it correctly, is it a safe process to go through?
It's not safe. I'm just going to come out and say that it's not safe. So you have to be determined, you have to be prepared, you have to be knowledgeable, and you have to train.
Do you ever give lessons?
I'm starting up lessons in August. I'm going to start a very small group of 7 people. I'm going to show them how to do it. And then if it goes okay and everyone feels safe and they follow instructions and they don't blow themselves up, then we'll have a second semester.
Wow, interesting. Totally interesting. Now, it can... Do you are some batches better than others? And how do you know if you've made a better batch? Are the dreams stronger?
No, you have like 4 different questions in there that all are totally relevant.
Yes.
That is, I didn't even think that you'd go there. That's awesome. Yes, every single batch is going to be unique. It's going to be unique in many different ways, but I'll give you an example of a physical way it's going to be unique and different. The phase, for some reason, here comes the moon again. For some reason, the phase of the moon, it makes a huge difference when you change the pH. So, for example, if I have completely dissolved my gold when it is at a full moon, and then I flip the pH, then I get exactly what I'm looking for at the end. If I do it on a new moon and do the complete opposite, then it does not work at all. It does not. The chemical reaction does not end up the way I want it to.
So you have to completely time your start and end date. And it's taking 6 months, so you have to plan this way in advance.
Yeah. Yes, you do. Now, I mean, you can sit and wait in stasis in one or two different stages. That's fine. But at the very beginning of the process, that's the most pertinent time.
How many times did you mess it up before you figured that out? A lot.
Four times.
Yeah. And okay, so the second part of my question, are there different batches that you use for different things?
Yes. It responds to human thought, both inside the body and outside the body, before you take it and after you take it. So if you are making it and you're irritated and you're having a bad day and you're flipping the pH, which tends to be the critical moments is when you're flipping the pH, then that's what you're going to get out of it. I've made the mistake of literally being in an argument and then going and then working on it because I was under the gun to get through a certain stage. And sure enough, at the end stage, I was reliving exactly the same emotions when I took it.
Really? So you would have negative dreams, nightmares, maybe?
No, I'm talking. It's also an emotional amplifier. That's another thing that we didn't discuss. I'm sorry.
Well, no, you know what? It's the exact same answer, though. It's a negative experience.
Yes, but essentially, yes, it would affect your dreams because your dreams are a reflection of your daily emotions.
So, what if you were tap dancing? You're in the final stage and you're watching The Sound of Music and you're and again, not making light of it, but you're in an uppity mood. You're happy.
Yeah, I've had that experience too. If I'm meditative and I'm contemplative and I'm looking for knowledge and I'm in an introspective mode, and then I get that critical phase and then I test it at the end, then it recreates a contemplative state.
Wow. Do you label that bag a little separate?
That's why it's also really important if you do decide to go buy it from someone, check them out and see if they keep themselves and advertise that they keep themselves in a positive mind frame, because it's all about who is making it. That's important.
Wow, that is fascinating. Do you think the ancients knew this? They must have.
They knew a lot of things that we didn't know, that we don't know right now. And I would have to say that they know. They did know.
Wow, what an unbelievable show tonight, Spencer.
I appreciate that. I'm humbled.
And, no, I'm humbled. And we've got to get you back very, very, very soon. I feel like we left a lot on the table tonight. You're right. We compressed everything. We got so much information in 2.5 hours, and we've got to get you back on. I want to keep going, and I wish I could, but we're on a network, and we have to stop at some point. But we have to continue this. And will you come back and join us again?
I would love to. It's been a wonderful conversation.
We have about 60 seconds left. The best way to contact you, go.
Please email me at author@pyramidfactory.net, especially if you're interested in the school that's coming up. And that's really my main forum. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter, I very rarely get on Twitter because I'm a big family man and I love also my work. But I do try to get on there as much as I can, maybe a couple months here and there. But at Real Time Truth. And please visit my book website. That's rudimentary, but I'll get to it and do something with it sooner or later at www.pyramidfactory.net.
And you can purchase the book there, no problems.
Oh, yeah, and it's on Amazon as well.
Okay. All right, Spencer, thank you so much. If you need anything, you know how to get a hold of us, and we've got to get you back on the show here as soon as possible. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you so much.
It's been a blast. Thanks.
Spencer Cross, everybody. Thank you so much, Spencer. I can't put it into words, man. It was this show, before I let you go, this show was about learning, and this show is, our audience is about that. We're all sponges here, and you were a shining example of exactly what this show is all about. So, again, thank you very much.
You bring a tear to my eye. Thanks.
You got it. Spencer Cross, everybody. That was one of the best shows we've had in a while. Last night with Joel Garvin was one of those enlightening things, and I look back to the nights of Bobby Schroeder and his show here. Tonight with Spencer Cross was exactly that, and I just got to say, I hope that everybody enjoyed the show as much as I did tonight. And tomorrow night, everybody, is Fader night. Wow. Are we going to light up the phones tomorrow? Because we've had that kind of week here on Fade to Black. So really looking forward to tomorrow night, Fader night, open lines all night. For all of the new listeners tonight that were dialing in, you had an extraordinary evening, and you were exposed to what the show was all about. Tomorrow night, all of the new listeners, it's open lines all night long. It's your show. It's the Fader show. That's what we do. Open lines all night long. Whatever you want to talk about. I don't screen calls. We here do not screen calls. That's the first thing. Second, there's no time limits. Third, you get to end your thoughts. That's what it is. Last week it was all about, what was it? Last week was Saturday morning cartoons and breakfast cereal. And that's only because Fader night is all about you. And never forget that. So that's tomorrow night. I would like to thank Spencer Cross one last time. That was an absolutely amazing show tonight. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, and Jonas. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Method of Signaling. Thank you so much for your hard work today, Method. Music by Doug Aldridge. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication KGRA The Planet. 3 years young. Tomorrow night is Fader night, and I'm going to say it one more time. Happy 20th anniversary to Clyde Lewis. You are the man. I am your host, Jimmy Church. I want everybody to be safe. See ya.